The National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. has reopened after a breathtaking top-to-bottom renovation. And we're celebrating the voices and achievements of women artists from around the world. Visit now to see Suchitra Matai, Myth from Matter, a new exhibition of richly layered and vibrant paintings, sculptures, and installations that use saris, vintage needlepoints, jewelry, and bindis to imagine a past that lifts up women and people of color. Tickets at nmwa.org. That's nmwa.org.
Today on CityCast DC, we are talking about a spat between dueling holiday markets in DC. We're going to talk about a battle over actually building new housing in the inner suburbs. And there is a Georgetown high society grifter scandal that's set to become a Jared Leto movie. And there's been a new twist in the story. I'm here with the Washington Post's Teo Armus and my CityCast colleague, Julia Karen. Today is Friday, October 4th. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC is talking about. Hey, Julia.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Teo.
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you guys. Hey, before we get started, we got a live taping coming up.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's next week. It's at the Black Cat. We're talking DC elections. It's going to feature Mike, who's here with me today. It's also going to feature co-host Bridget Todd and Tom Sherwood from WAMU.
For those of you who don't know, Tom Sherwood is one of the legends of covering City Hall in DC. And so we are going to pick his brain, and he's a pretty funny dude, too. So hopefully listen to his humor about the Trayon White situation, what's up with him running for re-election, even though he may have to relinquish the seat, about ranked choice voting, which is actually much more interesting than you think it is.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have a DC News legend here with us to talk all of the, obviously newsworthy stuff, but also a lot of the quirky and weird stuff that's going down in DC politics this election season.
So you can show up, you can listen to us talk, you can drink a beer, you can hear your own self when you listen to this news roundup next week.
That's right. That's Wednesday 9th, 6:30 p.m., The Black Cat, Mike, Tom Sherwood, Bridget. It's going to be a fun time.
Hey, so Teo, you have been covering this ongoing battle in Arlington. It concerns something called missing middle housing. And I think that's a much more boring name than it's much less interesting than the subject matter in general. But will you explain sort of what the backstory is and what the news is this week?
Yeah. So missing middle is a debate that has been playing out in Arlington for literally years now. And missing middle basically refers to anything that isn't sort of standalone single family houses and big high-rise apartment buildings. We're talking about townhouses, we're talking about duplexes, in some cases, maybe even like a garden apartment type of thing with, 4 or 5 or 6 units. In most parts of Arlington that are sort of pretty suburban, it has been really difficult, if not impossible, to actually build that sort of housing. They ascribe to single family only zonings. You can really only build, one house on a yard on one lot. And so what Missing Middle did, this was a vote that the county board adopted unanimously about a year and a half ago at this point, is it basically made it much easier to put in these missing middle housing options, again, so duplexes, townhouses, et cetera, in any residential neighborhood in Arlington. You can have a street that has only single family only houses now, and, passing certain permits, you would be able to build something a little denser.
The backstory there is Arlington, close-in suburb, just like everywhere else in the region, has gotten incredibly expensive. And the logic of this was if you can build, more kinds of houses, more stuff, that will make it not quite so expensive all the time.
Yes. Basically, everything about missing middle, I should note, is a debate. So people, there are a lot of people who don't even agree with that characterization of missing middle. I mean, if you think about it, putting in a fancy new townhouse, somewhere in North Arlington is probably not going to be super cheap. But in theory, a lot of proponents say that is the case, right? That at the very least, if these houses are going to get torn down to put in a big McMansion, you might as well, put in 3 apartments, that can house more people, especially so close to downtown DC, rather than, have it be this giant monstrosity that only houses a single family.
So you said that everything about this is a debate. I imagine that there has been pushback on this.
Yes, a lot of pushback. I mean, even before this was passed, a lot of homeowners, people that have been in Arlington for decades, all basically said, look, I bought into my neighborhood thinking that it was going to be this kind of quiet, tree-lined, sort of, not sparsely populated, but like not super dense area. Like they really, wanted to buy into kind of the classic vision of a suburb. They protested this plan even before it was passed. Immediately after it was passed, they sued over it. So basically the news this week is that their lawsuit, at least for now, is successful. A circuit court judge in Arlington basically ordered the county saying, this does not pass muster, hold off on missing middle, at least for the time being. We're expecting the county will probably appeal the lawsuit, but this is just sort of another chapter in the saga.
So what strikes me is interesting here and important, even if you don't live in Arlington or plan to, is like, look at this whole region of DC really bought into the kind of American or mid 20th century idea of like, you have housing here and you have work there and you shouldn't mix them, and you should have single family houses because that's the proper way to live. And then so far as you're going to have apartments or like, God forbid, duplexes or someone renting out a room, that should happen someplace else because those kinds of people are somehow dodgy or dangerous if you're living in a suburban neighborhood. And in addition to all of the like snootiness inherent in that, at least from my point of view, it also has been blamed for making it harder to build stuff and making prices higher. Although, as you say, there's people who really disagree with that point of view. What struck me, I don't live in Arlington, but in my like neighborhood listserv in DC, the people who tend to be on the no side of development battles and density battles, they were all sharing this news on the listserv, like, aha, look, our side's up. So, I think this is like for this whole region where housing is just so expensive and where we worry about whether just really sort of normal middle class jobs can afford to live here. I think this kind of debate, maybe with slightly different contours, is happening everywhere. And maybe that what's happening in Arlington is like an indication of the future.
Oh, absolutely. I think Arlington was the first locality in the DC region to do this, but it is certainly not the last. Alexandria is basically 6 months behind Arlington and everything. They passed a very similar policy. Then they also got sued for it. It's actually going to trial before the same exact judge who heard the case in Arlington. It's like, feels like deja vu when I'm writing these sorts of stories, because I'm like, this sounds awfully familiar. And then Montgomery County is also looking at doing something similar.
This was a thing in the vice presidential debate this week. They were talking about housing and expense. Tim Walz kept citing Minneapolis. We did this in Minneapolis. We did this in Minneapolis because Minneapolis became one of the first places in America to get rid of most of that kind of single family zoning, which, Arlington's the first place in Virginia to do that.
Yeah, in Virginia, and I should say also most of the like Acela corridor, as I call it, kind of like Northeast plus. Minneapolis was an early adopter, a lot of places on the West Coast, California, Portland, Oregon. But this is really kind of I don't want to call it a movement, but like a trend in urban planning, right? Yeah, I mean, the idea is that it's sort of pretty low-hanging fruit. And especially in places like Arlington or, Alexandria or closer in parts of Montgomery County. I mean, the thinking is that if all these jobs are in downtown DC and you're 20 minutes driving, or maybe a little bit longer on public transport from downtown DC, like, you should have dense housing there, right? Because it's closer to schools, it's closer to jobs, it's closer to opportunity. This is a high demand place. A lot of people want to live here. And, the thinking behind all this is that you should make it easier for people to live here. Another argument that people make, I should note there's a lot of sort of advocacy groups that organized in support of this, a lot of them being kind of like younger sort of renter or YIMBY urbanist groups. And then also a lot of racial justice and interfaith groups. The NAACP of Arlington got really involved in supporting this. And, the argument they make is a racial justice one. Single family only zoning was, historically used for racial segregation to keep out people of color, to keep out low income people. And, even if in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't end up producing that much more housing, it's a big symbolic victory, in saying we're going to get rid of this tool that was sort of used for racism.
So what does this court ruling mean in the near future and for the right now for people who, want to get maybe a townhouse or a duplex? Are they not going to be able to find one? What's happening?
I was planning this afternoon to buy some property in Arlington, knock it down, and put up a duplex. So please
we're
inform me if
splitting
that's
that.
allowed.
We're splitting that. I want to be a homeowner, Mike. Let's go.
Just a super speedy cycle right there, very clearly. I will say, obviously, housing takes a really long time to build. I think there were something like 45, definitely upwards of 40 missing middle permits that were issued. And the judge actually has not issued a written order yet. So a lot of people are very confused, frankly, about exactly what this means. That was a big kind of sticking point for a lot of opponents. But the way that the county is interpreting this for now is they basically have said, we're not going to issue any more missing middle permits. Very few missing middle properties have even sort of begun construction. So essentially, maybe a couple of outliers here and there. We're just kind of going back to the drawing board in some sense. Before March 2023, when this is voted in, any one of these single family, only neighborhoods, you can only build single family there for now.
What's wild about this, it seems to me also, is, Arlington's heavily blue place, just like most of this region. But this kind of inverted the libertarian argument, where in this case, it's the left side that's effectively saying a property owner can do what they want with their property. If they want to turn a single family suburban house into a duplex or into a apartment building, they should be allowed to. And the more conservative side is saying no, government should tell you what to do with your property, or should limit what you can do with your property, which makes it sort of again, I think our national politics are changing, and the housing cost is a huge factor in this. And I think it's going to be interesting to watch, huh?
Yeah. I think what's really interesting about the politics of housing always is that you don't really have a left or right. I think you have people making sort of traditionally conservative or traditionally liberal arguments for something like missing middle, and also against something like missing middle.
Let's be real, lawsuits are not fun, but with Paulson & Nace, at least they're a little easier. Paulson & Nace is a DC law firm in every sense of the word. It was founded here in 1979. Partner Chris Nace is a local who cares deeply about the DC community, even serving on the board of the local branch of the Living Classrooms Foundation in his free time. Nace and his associates Samantha Peters and Maya Perry handle medical malpractice, wrongful death, and other complex injury cases. And they don't just settle every case. They'll go to court. They'll fight for you. Paulson & Nace has even been recognized as one of U.S. News' best law firms. So if you have been hurt or lost a loved one because of someone else's mistake or negligence, call Paulson & Nace for a no-obligation consultation. Visit www.paulsonandnace.com. That's PAULSONANDNACE.com. Or call 202-463-1999.
The National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. has reopened after a breathtaking top-to-bottom renovation. And we're celebrating the voices and achievements of women artists from around the world. Visit now to see Suchitra Matai, Myth from Matter, a new exhibition of richly layered and vibrant paintings, sculptures, and installations that use saris, vintage needlepoints, jewelry, and bindis to imagine a past that lifts up women and people of color. Tickets at nmwa.org. That's nmwa.org.
Moving on to something slightly less serious, or maybe not. There is a spat going on between dueling holiday markets in DC. And this is actually weirdly connected, because every time I talk to people about the revival of downtown DC or trying to bring more people into downtown DC, the advocates always say, well, we've got Christmas markets. Or do we? What's happening, Julia?
Okay, so I don't know about you all, but the downtown Christmas market, the one that is in front of Capital One Arena, has been around for 20 years. I'm a frequent flyer of that event. I like going to it. I have a friend who works for one of the vendors at that event. It's a good time. You poke around, you try to find some Christmas wares or some art or something like that. All this to say, now there are going to be two Christmas markets. Not in the same place, though.
Why are there going to be two Christmas markets?
So, I'm happy you asked. The downtown DC bid the business improvement district, basically ended its 2-decade relationship with Diverse Markets. This is the management company that oversaw that particular holiday market. Why did they do this? They did this because, according to Jared Price, who's the president of the bid, basically said that feedback around that market said that there was like declining quality of this market. They want to see different management. Basically, that the holiday market, he said, had, the vendor mix had gone stale. There were repetitive products. There was not a lot of change year to year, not enough diversity. Basically, the bid was like, we're done with this. It's the same old shtick. And so then the guy who's angered by this, Diverse Markets president, Michael Berman, said he fought the change until he basically ran into a brick wall. And he was so mad about it. He was so mad about being left off to the side and the spat. He tried to find a place to produce a competing holiday market. And he found a place in DuPont Circle on the 1500 block of 19th Street Northwest.
So he didn't take his DC neighborhood themed necklaces or artisanal coffee mugs and go home.
No, he fought the change vociferously. Basically, a lot of Berman's comments in one of the interviews to the Washington Post, he scoffed at Jared Price, saying that there was a declining quality in the market. This is a market that's been around for 20 years. How much quality can decline or improve in that amount of time, Can
I make a terrible confession?
Absolutely.
I don't like holiday markets. In fact,
Damn.
I think that like DC is like the kind of artisanal fair thing. It's like we're a city, right? A big city. And there's stores. I mean, there should be at least stores and activity and stuff. So like, it's not like this is a small town where nothing's happening, where we have to import like once a year, like, ooh, it's exciting. We finally get some bustle. Like we should have bustle all the time. But also, like, have you ever been to the holiday market and thought like, boy, there's exactly the present I want to get someone I really care about in my life? It's like, oh, look, it's that map of my neighborhood that everyone has. Maybe the downtown bid guy is right, and this is like a decline in quality, and it's not the fault of all such markets. Or maybe, our country has just been like so Etsy saturated that like very little stands out anymore. I don't know, but I always get when they talk about trying to bring people back to downtown and cite the holiday market as a reason, I sort of think like, oh, don't we have anything better than that to bring people downtown?
Michael, I kind of see where you're going. I feel like every time I've been, I always go for the food. They have like, holiday snacks. But as far as like stuff to buy, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know. It just doesn't quite do it for me. Or like everything's very expensive. And then I'm like, is this actually the sort of thing that I am going to get like times 10 for every extended family member I have? Like it's a sort of a tough sell on that front. Can I just point out a bit of irony that struck me when you were mentioning that is that, so if I have this straight, Diverse Markets is like the OG original holiday market operator. And the city said that they weren't diverse enough.
That's correct.
Right? So I just feel the need to point that out. I'm like,
we
interesting.
Agree. It's
yeah, no, it's like if you're a burger restaurant and the city says your burgers aren't very good.
I know.
I mean, just to be clear, I like anything that brings people into the streets and creates, vibrant stuff where you're going to run into neighbors, friends, people you haven't seen in a while. I think that this particular way of doing it, I agree. It feels a little bit stale now.
All right. Here's the deal. If you're not a Grinch, like Teo or Mike, basically, here's the breakdown of the two holiday markets. And listen closely because they sound very similar. It will get confusing. I'm sorry in advance. The first one is called the Downtown DC Holiday Market. This is the one at F Street Northwest. It's going to be open from Friday, November 22nd to Monday, December 23rd. This is the one that's going to be outside the National Portrait Gallery, near the Gallery Place Chinatown Metro Station. There's going to be nearly 100 vendors there. This is the one run by the Brooklyn-based Makers Show. That's the company that's running it. So that's one holiday market. The second holiday market is called the DC Holiday Market. I'm already confused, but it's fine. This is the one that's open in DuPont Circle. It will be open Friday, November 22nd to Sunday, December 15th. It will be on the 1500 block of 19th Street Northwest, which is right outside the Kramer's bookstore. And there will be more than 30 vendors and holiday treats from Miguel's Mini Donuts and the Capital Candy Jar. The organization that's running it is Diverse Markets Management. That's the DC-based company that ran the downtown holiday market for years. So
two competing options, pick your fancy, have a competition, or go to both like I'm going to do just to see, if either one is competing with each other. I can't believe we're already talking about Christmas, but here we are.
Well, if you guys need me, I'll be at Walmart. All right, so you guys, as I've said on our pod a lot, I really wish DC had like an old-fashioned greasy tabloid that was full of like scandal stories and stuff. But previous guest on CityCast, Paul Schwartzman, had a piece in the Post this week that followed something that Post did, and it was a big airmail story a couple of years ago about the saga of this retired professor called Lawrence Gray, who had for a time lived in Georgetown with his, I hate this word, but his socialite partner. They were frequent dinner party hosts. They mingled supposedly in high society until he, Lawrence Gray, was accused, including by his eventually deceased partner's family, of large amounts of jewelry thefts. He has now pled guilty in New York, although the story made him not seem especially contrite about this. And some people suspect it was all so that he could be allowed to attend his child's wedding in Rome. One of the people who has been swindled or who has lost jewelry is the retired ambassador who is the son of Diana Vreeland, the former Vogue editor from the 1950s and sort of, pop culture figure. So this whole thing has a sort of like geriatric, talented Mr. Ripley kind of vibe. And again, if there was like a good DC tabloid, this would be like a front page for like a week or two.
Can I just say, I love that this guy basically pled guilty because his passport was revoked and he just wanted to get his passport back to go to the daughter's wedding.
I mean, father of the year, I guess. I don't know.
And maybe he should have bought her a present at the downtown holiday market.
Could have stole and kept some of the jewelry that he was trying to steal around Rome. I don't know. That could have been a good wedding gift.
So after this appeared in Airmail a couple years ago, Jared Leto has purchased the movie rights. A lot more rights get purchased than movies get made, et cetera, et cetera. But it could be in the canon of like Georgetown society scandal movies, like Georgetown. Which was based on a New York Times Magazine story about a Georgetown grifter about 10 or 15 years ago.
I have no idea what that scandal is. Please elaborate.
It was a little darker because it wound up with someone dead under unnatural circumstances. But I've sort of had this question that, occurred to me in both these cases. Like there was a time when like elite Georgetown or whatever had, there were these like grande dame society figures who could like, say, Teo, we're going to cast you out. We think you're an Araviste and a fraud, and you'll never eat dinner in this town again. And they actually could maybe make good on that. They were sort of like gatekeepers. And whether we're talking about the media or anything else in society, we're in an age when the gatekeepers are gone. And I wonder if it's easier to grift in an elite company than it used to be. There's not a whole lot of data points on this, but it's something I think about.
Like kind of an Anna Delvey vibe,
yes.
Sort of. And
yes.
Then they just banish you from the DC holiday market forever.
Or they consign you to the DC. Like, sorry, there'll be no stolen jewelry for you. You're going to have to go buy your tchotchkes on F Street like everyone else.
Or at 1500 in DuPont Circle. Take your pick.
Yeah, I guess it's a better year to be a discovered grifter. More options on the market for you. But I don't know. I mean, I guess we're like in the Instagram age, right? When, anyone can kind of make themselves, come off as something that they're not. I mean, again, I watched all of Inventing Anna or whatever that show was called. So that's my frame of reference here. But maybe Jared Leto is going to have to hurry up on his production here. So we all have a new reference point.
I mean, it's an interesting movie, right? That like, it's a little easier to sell, I imagine, in Hollywood if you have a mysterious and alluring young woman as your grifter rather than a octogenarian retired political science professor. But, who knows? Maybe it'll be amazing.
I know what will be amazing, though. Teo, I don't know about you. I'm about to binge DC Love is Blind. How about you?
I am so excited to start, but 6 episodes. I'm like, there's just a lot to dig into, but I'm very excited to watch.
Yeah. All right. So if you are as excited as Teo is, as excited as I am, we are going to have a Love is Blind recap episode on Monday. Get excited because I love talking dumb reality television. I don't know. Maybe they find matches. Maybe they find love. Maybe we see them at a holiday Christmas market. Who's to say?
Well, awesome to see you guys. Julia, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Mike.
Teo, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for having me on.
And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. Our production team this week was Priyanka Tilve, Julia Karen, Ash Durbin, and Selena Say Reynolds. Newsletter editor Kayla Cote-Stemmerman wrote our fabulous newsletter Hey DC this week. And our hosts are Bridget Todd and me, Michael Schaefer from Politico. Music is by Alex Roldan. If you enjoyed the show, why not carve CityCast's name into a necklace and then get a booth at a holiday market and sell it? We'll be back Monday morning with more news from around the city. Bye.